It is a Sunday evening. Priya, 44, Senior Marketing Manager, Pongo, opens a spreadsheet. She earns 8,000 Singapore dollars a month. After CPF, 6,400 reaches her account. She is good at her job. She is respected. She also woke up last Monday and felt, for the first time in her career, like she did not want to go in. Not because anything went wrong, just because she realized she had no choice. She types one question at the top. How much do I need so that work is a choice and not a requirement? Most people who search for this find a number between $1 and $2 million. She closes the browser after 15 minutes, feeling worse than before she started. Today, we answer that question with a real number, built from real costs, using real instruments every person watching this can access right now. The number is almost certainly smaller than what you have been told. Here is what Hui Ling believed her number was. She is 49, secondary school teacher, Ang Mo Kio. For 3 years, she has been certain she needs 1 million Singapore dollars before she can slow down. 1 million has paralyzed her completely. Tonight, she will find out her real number. It is not 1 million. It is not close. We will get there. First, one condition. Start with what life in Singapore actually costs, not what expat forums say. What the numbers say when you are honest about the life you want. Priya plans to have her HDB paid off at 52. No car, MRT to work, hawker centre 4 days a week, one trip abroad a year. The honest monthly cost of that life? Hawker food and home cooking $400. MRT and occasional Grab $120. Electricity, water, internet, MediShield Life integrated plan, phone $380. Clothing and personal care $150. Restaurants and the Japan trip divided by 12, $550. Healthcare buffer $200. Conservancy and maintenance $100. She adds it up, 1,900 Singapore dollars a month. She expected much more. The Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. Minimum income standard for a single elderly person. The amount covering basic needs with dignity was $1,492 in their 2022 study. At 2% inflation to 2026, that is approximately $1,600. Priya's number is higher because she travels and eats better than the minimum. But even at 1,900, this is the honest cost of a comfortable life in Singapore when the flat is paid off and there is no car. She does not need to replace $8,000 a month. She needs to replace 1,900. Those are completely different problems, and they require completely different amounts of capital. Before the instruments, the structural advantage that most people never fully account for. 0. That is, the tax rate on dividends from Singapore-listed stocks and REITs for individual investors. Singapore operates a one-tier corporate tax system. The company pays 17% corporate income tax. That tax is final. The dividend that reaches your account carries no further obligation. No withholding, no filing, no dividend tax in your hands. Whether you receive $1,000 a year or $100,000, the tax owed is 0. Compare this to the United States, where dividends attract 30% withholding for non-resident investors before a single cent enters your account. Australia's franking system still leaves a net drag. The United Kingdom taxes dividends above £1,500 at the marginal rate. In Singapore, you keep every cent. Every S-REIT distribution, every DBS dividend, every CICT payout. Yours, fully, immediately. On a portfolio generating 30,000 Singapore dollars in annual dividends, 0 withholding versus 30% is the difference between $30,000 reaching your account and $21,000. That $9,000 gap every year for 30 years is not a footnote. It is the most valuable structural advantage a Singaporean investor holds over their peers in almost every other developed country. Most people treat it like a footnote. Now the instruments. Priya's $1,900 a month requires 22,800 Singapore dollars a year. Singapore Exchange lists over 40 real estate investment trusts, S-REITs, covering industrial, logistics, retail, office, healthcare, and data center assets. By law, S-REITs must distribute at least 90% of their distributable income to unit holders. As at December 31st, 2025, the average distribution yield across the S-REIT sector was 5.9% based on the iEdge S-REIT index. Not a blog estimate, the official sector benchmark. But the average hides a range that determines how you build the portfolio. CapitaLand Integrated Commercial Trust, CICT, ticker C38U, owns Ion Orchard, Plaza Singapura, Capita Spring. In 2025, its distribution per unit grew 6.4% year-on-year. Yield as at February 2026, 4.6%, lower than the sector average. Occupancy above 95%. DPU growing rather than shrinking. This is the stable core. Lower yield, higher predictability. CapitaLand Ascendas REIT, CLAR, ticker A17U, Singapore's largest industrial and logistics REIT. Over 220 properties across Singapore, Australia, the United States, and Europe. Yield as at July 2026, 5.5%, moving towards 6% on a forward basis after April 2026 acquisitions added data centers in Singapore and logistics assets in Japan. This is the yield engine. Mapletree Industrial Trust, MIT, ticker ME8U. 6.5% yield driven by data center demand in Singapore and the United States. The three banks. DBS approximately 5.2% at end of March 2026. UOB trailing 6.3% in January 2026, including special dividends. OCBC 4.3% forward, the most conservative payout ratio of the three, which is precisely what makes it defensible across a full economic cycle. ParkwayLife REIT, healthcare assets across Singapore, Japan, Malaysia. 3.5 to 4% yield, the slowest grower, also the only S-REIT that maintained or grew its DPU through every downturn since 2010. When everything else cuts, ParkwayLife holds. A portfolio across these instruments: CICT for retail stability, SLAR and MIT for industrial yield, DBS and OCBC for bank income, ParkwayLife for defensive healthcare, produces a blended yield of 5 to 5.5% at current prices. At 5%, Priya needs 456,000 Singapore dollars. At 5.5%, 414,000. That is the real number for her level of expenses, not a million. Between 414,000 and 456,000 Singapore dollars in a diversified SGX dividend portfolio covers her entire cost of living. James is 61. He retired from Keppel Corporation at 58 after 23 years as a senior engineer. 5-room HDB in Toa Payoh, fully paid, no car. He built his portfolio over 13 years. He started at 45 with a $500 a month regular savings plan through DBS Invest Saver into the Nikko AMSTI ETF. He added CICT units in 2013 when a market correction pushed the yield briefly above 5%. He added CLAR in 2017. He bought DBS shares directly in March 2020, when the price fell to $16 and the trailing yield crossed 5%. Portfolio today: 580,000 Singapore dollars across 4 S-REITs and 2 banks. Annual distributions: $31,000, $2,583 every month, tax-free, whether he leaves his flat or not. In March 2020, when every financial outlet was writing about the end of retail and the collapse of commercial property, the CICT unit price dropped below 2 Singapore dollars. James bought more. That single decision added approximately $40,000 to his current portfolio value. He did nothing complicated. He did the opposite of what fear told him. James deferred his CPF life from 65 to 70. 5 years of deferral increases the payout by approximately 35%, from $1,780 to approximately $2,400 a month on the full retirement sum standard plan. His wife starts CPF life at 65 at $1,780. Combined at 70, 4,180 Singapore dollars per month from CPF alone. Add his dividend portfolio, $6,763 a month, tax-free. In a paid-off 5-room flat in Toa Payoh. He started with $500 a month at 45. That is the whole origin story. Now Hui Ling's real number. She is 49. 22 years teaching in Ang Mo Kio. 3-room HDB paid off. She opens the CPF app tonight for the first time in 4 months. Her projection at 65. On track for the full retirement sum. $1,780 per month from CPF Life. Her actual monthly cost in that flat, 1,850 Singapore dollars. CPF Life covers 1,780. The monthly gap, $70. $840 a year. At 5% yield, the portfolio that closes that gap permanently is 16,800 Singapore dollars. But she wants to stop at 60, 5 years before CPF Life begins. 5 years at 1,850 per month is 111,000 Singapore dollars. She holds that in Singapore savings bonds, 2.11% average yield over 10 years, government guaranteed, redeemable any month with no penalty, and draws it down across those 5 years while the dividend portfolio runs. Total to retire at 60. 111,000 in Singapore savings bonds as a bridge fund, plus 168,000 in a dividend portfolio. 279,000 Singapore dollars. Not 1 million, not even 300,000. She opens FSM1 tonight, an MAS licensed platform, no minimum transaction fee on RSPs, and sets up $300 a month into CLAR. She does not wait for the right time. The right time was 3 years ago. The second best time is tonight. Now the risks. Because 5.5% and zero tax is compelling, and it is, but this portfolio can hurt you in ways CPF cannot. Kevin is 35, software developer, Jurong East. He has been putting $500 a month into CLAR for 2 years. He is 60% concentrated in one REIT and about to understand why that is dangerous. In 2022, the Singapore overnight rate average, SORA, rose from near zero to 3.68% by 2023. REITs borrow to buy properties. When refinancing costs jumped, distributable income compressed. Several major SREITs cut DPU by 10 to 20%. Investors expecting 5% received 4 to 4.5. SORA has since eased to approximately 2.8% in early 2026. The pressure is lower. The risk does not disappear. Kevin looks at AIM's APAC REIT at 8.95% and considers moving in. He should not. That yield reflects higher leverage and thinner liquidity than CICT or CLAR. The highest yield in any REIT portfolio is almost never the safest yield. It disappears first when conditions tighten. He parks 6 months of living expenses in Singapore savings bonds, 2.11%, government-backed, redeemable any month with no penalty. When REIT unit prices fall, he draws from SSBs instead of selling units into a falling market. He adds CICT for retail stability, DBS for bank income, ParkwayLife for healthcare defensiveness. One rule: no single position above 25% of the dividend portfolio. He keeps that rule for 20 years regardless of what any individual yield does. At $500 per month RSP, 5.5% yield reinvested for 20 years, Kevin's portfolio at 55. 462,000 Singapore dollars. Distributions: 25,400 a year, $2,117 a month, tax-free. Before CPF Life, before anything else. Just from the RSP he started at 35. He opens FSM1 tonight. He splits his $500 RSP, 250 into CLAR, 250 into CICT. He adds a standing quarterly purchase of $1,000 of DBS through DBS Vickers. 3 positions, none above 25%. He does not revisit this until next quarter. One piece Priya had not calculated before tonight: the couple calculation. Her husband also works, also has CPF, both on track for the full retirement sum. Combined CPF Life at 65, $3,560 per month. The LKY SPP minimum income standard for an elderly couple in 2026, approximately $2,700. Their CPF Life already covers their combined costs. The dividend portfolio is no longer a survival mechanism. It becomes the upgrade, better travel, private hospital coverage, the bridge years between retirement and 65. That 7-year bridge at $1,900 a month is 159,600 Singapore dollars. Held in Singapore savings bonds, drawn down while the dividend portfolio runs alongside. Priya's action tonight. She opens FSM1 and starts a $1,000 RSP into CLAR and DBS equally. She opens her SRS account on the IRAS portal, 6 minutes, $0, and schedules 15,300 Singapore dollars for the 2nd of January, invested in VWRA within 3 business days, Irish domiciled. 15% dividend withholding instead of 30, no US estate tax exposure. That SRS contribution saves her $2,983 in tax this year at her 19.5% marginal rate, and the VWRA grows at market returns with a 50% tax concession on withdrawal after 63. She allocates $20,000 to Singapore savings bonds as the start of her bridge fund. She closes the spreadsheet at 11:47. She saves the file as the real number. Hui Ling already has hers, $279,000. She spent 3 years walking away from a calculation that took 40 minutes. Now Hui Ling's real number. She is 49. 22 years teaching in Ang Mo Kio. 3-room HDB paid off. She opens the CPF app tonight for the first time in 4 months. Her projection at 65. On track for the full retirement sum. $1,780 per month from CPF Life. Her actual monthly cost in that flat, 1,850 Singapore dollars. CPF Life covers 1,780. The monthly gap, $70. $840 a year. At 5% yield, the portfolio that closes that gap permanently is 16,800 Singapore dollars. But she wants to stop at 60, 5 years before CPF Life begins. 5 years at 1,850 per month is 111,000 Singapore dollars. She holds that in Singapore savings bonds, 2.11% average yield over 10 years, government guaranteed, redeemable any month with no penalty, and draws it down across those 5 years while the dividend portfolio runs. Total to retire at 60. 111,000 in Singapore savings bonds as a bridge fund, plus 168,000 in a dividend portfolio. 279,000 Singapore dollars. Not 1 million, not even 300,000. She opens FSM1 tonight, an MAS licensed platform, no minimum transaction fee on RSPs, and sets up $300 a month into CLAR. She does not wait for the right time. The right time was 3 years ago. The second best time is tonight.